single chart will activate the baby bull deep inside your bone like nothing before in history. As reality begins to shine down upon us and flash mega signals about what is actually happening, the last thing you want to do is miss exactly what this means. Absolutely ginormous, as Bitcoin is about to head into its last weekend trading before this upcoming FOMC meeting, where we are very likely to see the very last US rate hike. That potentially will happen before Bitcoin's next all-time high run, sometime most likely in 2024 or even early 2025. Bitcoin itself is flashing some absolutely incredible signs on longer-term charts, and I want to jump into that. But before we do, the very first thing I want to highlight is that Senator Warren's bill being delayed due to lack of sponsors, which I think is a very good, very necessary, and inevitable conclusion. Obviously, this is going to be something that Elizabeth Warbucks herself, who is paid by the bankers like nobody else in the industry to FUD crypto and try to eliminate it. Obviously, she's introducing the most aggressive crypto regulation that we've ever seen. She wants to kick crypto completely. She wants to make it illegal to have wallets. She wants to literally, because she's paid by the bank, she wants to destroy crypto. And it's pretty interesting to see that, a lack of sponsors for this bill might delay this process, which is just very good. And again, long term, it doesn't matter. This is a battle we're facing right now. But 5-10 years down the road, nobody's going to remember Elizabeth. Nobody's going to care about what she tried to do because she was paid by the banks. And it's simple as that. But I want to take a look at Bitcoin right now. As we sit around that $29,000 level, we've spent a lot of basically the last month trading completely within 27 to 29,000 US dollars, inching up a little bit to about 30,000 very briefly. But for the most part, we spent the last month in a very tight consolidation range here, very identical to the range like we saw back in early February. And we have some very clear support and resistance. Most likely, like I said, if we're going to see a pullback, I think touching down around 23 is very likely. But if we take a look at longer term charts, I think that's what's really interesting here. So if we look at Bitcoin on this 10-day chart, we had a very insane RSI cross at the very end of December 2022. And ever since then, Bitcoin has been going up. Now, historically, the last time we saw something like this where the RSI was down here near the 30 line, it was back here in the bear market of 2019, which again was one of the best times to buy. Exactly like I believe back here at the end of December, beginning of January, where I entered long positions as well that I still currently have open around these levels as well. I personally believe this is basically exactly what we're seeing now. And once we had that bullish cross, Bitcoin went up a pretty large percent. It went up over 200%, nearly 300%. Actually, actually almost 350%, right? So a pretty big bust. Now, I'm not saying we're going to pump exactly 350%, because if we did, it would put Bitcoin actually, unreasonably high, to be honest. It'd be very high up if we had a pump that big. But shortly after we had the RSI switch momentum, have a bullish cross here, and really start to pick up, exactly like we're seeing now. Shortly after, we then had the bullish cross with the 50 and 21, the 21 going above the 50 on this 10-day chart. Which has only happened, as you can see on this chart, once in the past couple of years. And then the opposite of it, the bearish cross, has actually only happened twice in the past couple of years. It happened back in the end of September 2018, and Bitcoin went from about 7,000 down to about 3,500 or 3,000. And it happened when Bitcoin was at about 40,000. And then it went all the way down to about 15,000, and this was this flash back in May of 2022. We saw the RSI have this cross down here in the oversold area of the RSI, and then run all the way up to overbought. Currently, we're about halfway through that. So I actually want to pivot then to a longer chart, the 30-day chart, the monthly chart for Bitcoin. And something even more interesting here, if we take a look at the RSI on the monthly chart, when we had this cross back in 2015 with the RSI crossing, bullish cross on the RSI on the monthly chart back in 2015, it basically marked the best time, literal best time to buy. And then it marked the beginning of the massive bull run that ended in very beginning of 2018, very end of 2017. Then the next time we had that, the very next time, was about 4 years later in 2019. And aside from the March 2020 crash because of the pandemic and everything like that, aside from that, it was the beginning of the bull market, a very good time to buy. If you would have bought here around, what is this, about 3,500, obviously, so a pretty good time to buy. And then we ended up getting about one more attempt at about one more buy area around 4,000 because of the crash of the pandemic crash. And then we had, again, another kind of just continuation of that cross. But ultimately, I believe the beginning of it was back in January 2019, which is like the optimal time to buy. Yeah, again, obviously, there was 1 month where 1 month wasn't good, but we all know why that was, I just said. But other than that, it basically just went up, and it was a very good investment. So we saw here, and we've seen this cross actually now just about 3 months ago. And we've been going up straight since then. Now, again, keep in mind, we could still have a month like we saw back in the crash of March 2020, but ultimately, here's what happened after we got this cross each time. So if we see something similar to this, the optimal time to buy is behind us. We have this bullish cross on the MACD actually insanely close, very, very close. We actually see this coming up, over the next month, most likely we'll see this cross. And overall indicating that even if we get a drop down to the 25K level, we highlight this, even if we go back down here, we retest, we come down to this next highest volume area around 23,000 at like the lowest. Ultimately, again, I feel like that, in my opinion, based on these charts, that's literally just the next best time you'll have to buy in. Because if you're still waiting for a $10,000 Bitcoin before you re-enter, because believe it or not, there are literally people watching this video right now, and they're about to hate this sentence because they know what's coming. But if you're still waiting for a 10K Bitcoin, technically, do you have a chance of that happening? Sure, of course you do, right? How big is that chance? I would say less than 2%. So 2%, if you're looking at that and thinking, okay, that's a really big percent, let me remind you, there's 98% that's saying, no, that's very unlikely. So again, technically, while anything's possible, the chance of you having the opportunity to enter back in to buy Bitcoin around $10,000 or lower, it's insane. So with that being said, if we look on Bitcoin's daily chart, you can see where, again, a revisit to this level is still always possible. There is the potential that people have highlighted, maybe if we kind of top out, even though we've kind of pumped a little bit higher here, maybe form some sort of head and shoulders pattern and bring us down, even at the very worst, down to this level here over the next month. Again, that's like a worst case scenario in my opinion. I think that's something that's possible. I think the chances of this happening are much greater than 2%, but still, in my opinion, way less than about 50%. Ultimately, though, if that would happen, I would absolutely, you would have to understand that's still part of long-term higher lows. Okay, we have lows down here around 15, 16, and then around 20. So again, worst case, I think if we even came down here, that's not even that bad. People would be panicking though, because it's about $7,000 lower than we currently are. People would be very scared, but ultimately that's something that I don't think would really be very scary or interesting at all. I think that would be totally fine. Worst case scenario. What I think is most likely, like I said, is that over the next couple of weeks, we break 30K. And again, I think a lot of this is actually going to be determined by the FOMC meeting and how Jerome Powell talks about basically his stance, whether he's hawkish, dovish, or what have you. But ultimately, again, we see the stock market actually today nearing its highs of the year. It's within, let's take a peek here. It's about like 1% away from breaking its highs of this entire year. Now, clearly, it's not near its all-time highs, which were set back in the very end of 2021. But the stock market, for some reason, again, they're trying to price in the Fed pivoting here. And so if that happens, things could get very bullish for the stock market. And obviously, that would be very bullish for Bitcoin as well. And as well, I did want to announce that if you've been whitelisted, if you go on your FEMEX Soul Pass here, you'll actually see you've been whitelisted and you can follow the steps. You can just pause this video if you want to look at these steps here, and you can begin minting XPT. Basically, every time you trade, you're going to accumulate XPT. So again, absolutely potentially invaluable. And if you are interested in trading, there is still a limited time over $6,000 in deposit and sign-up bonuses with FEMEX below, other deposit bonuses with BitGet as well if you sign up using my link below. Completely ginormous potential if you're interested in signing up below. Tutorials are also popping up, and it takes about just literally 1 or 2 minutes to sign up there. And without any further ado, that's it for me.